The galaxy had never seen a war like this. It had started as a small conflict between two empires, but soon the flames spread across the stars. One by one, entire civilizations were pulled into the chaos. The Exalvoth Empire, the most feared force in the universe, crushed every opponent that dared to resist them. Their warships were faster, their weapons stronger, their soldiers merciless. They burned planets, enslaved races, and silenced anyone who spoke against them. The war became a cycle, each battle leading to another, each victory followed by more destruction. The other species fought back, but no matter what they did, the Exalvoth always won. Hope was a fading memory. No one believed in miracles anymore. The galaxy had accepted its fate. But then, humanity arrived. Humans had remained silent during the war, watching from the shadows. They were a young race, unknown to most of the galaxy. Some believed they were weak, others thought they were cowards. When the last remaining free civilizations sent desperate pleas for help, humanity finally answered. But they didn't send diplomats. They didn't send an army. They sent one warship, a massive black vessel that drifted through space like a ghost. It had no markings, no insignia, only a name painted across its hull, the Vengeance. When it arrived in the middle of the battlefield, the Exalvoth fleet barely paid attention. It was just one ship, and the Exalvoth had destroyed thousands before. But then, something happened that no one could explain. The Exalvoth's strongest warship, the Blood Tyrant, locked onto the Vengeance and fired a direct hit. A shot powerful enough to shatter moons. But when the explosion cleared, the human warship was still there. No damage. No shields. Just there. The Exalvoth commander hesitated for the first time. This was impossible. He ordered every ship in the fleet to fire. Beams of energy, torpedoes, planetary cannons, everything was unleashed at the Vengeance. The universe shook from the sheer power of the attack. And yet, when the firestorm ended, the warship remained untouched. Then, it moved. Without warning, the Vengeance fired a single shot. It wasn't a missile, nor a laser. It was something different, something the galaxy had never seen before. The moment it struck the Blood Tyrant, the Exalvoth warship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. No debris, no remains. It was as if the ship had never existed. Silence spread across the battlefield. Panic followed. The Exalvoth fleet, once arrogant and fearless, hesitated. They had fought thousands of wars, destroyed entire civilizations, but never had they seen something like this. The Vengeance fired again. Another ship disappeared. Then another. And another. The Exalvoth commanders screamed orders. Fall back. Regroup. But it didn't matter. Their weapons didn't work. Their shields failed. Their engines refused to move. It was as if the universe itself had turned against them. On the other side of the galaxy, leaders of alien civilizations watched in horror. For centuries, they had underestimated humans. They believed them to be nothing more than a minor species, unworthy of attention. But now, in a matter of minutes, a single human warship had done what no other empire could have had, broken the Exalvoth. Fear spread faster than light. What have we awakened? They whispered. The Exalvoth, once conquerors, were now running for their lives. They begged for mercy, but the Vengeance did not stop. One by one, their fleets disappeared into nothingness. Then, as suddenly as it had arrived, the warship turned and left. It didn't declare victory. It didn't make demands. It simply sent a message across the galaxy. 4 words that would be remembered for eternity: this war is over. No one knew where the Vengeance had come from. No one knew what technology it had used. And most terrifying of all, no one knew if humanity would ever use it again. The war that no one could win had finally ended, but now the galaxy had a new question to answer. Had they just been saved? Or had they only delayed their own destruction? The war had lasted for centuries. Civilizations rose and fell, entire species vanished, and yet the conflict never ended. The Exalvoth Empire had become the undisputed rulers of the stars, their fleets unstoppable, their armies merciless. They had burned planets, enslaved worlds, and silenced all resistance. The war had become their way of life, a cycle of destruction that no one could escape. Every species that had dared to stand against them had been crushed. The last remaining free civilizations gathered what little strength they had left and sent out a desperate plea for help, a final message into the void. They did not expect an answer. But then, something arrived. Something no one had ever seen before. It appeared without warning, emerging from the darkness of space like a shadow. A single warship, massive and silent, floating at the edge of the battlefield. It had no markings, no insignia, no broadcast signals. It was completely black, as if it had been carved from the void itself. The Exalvoth warlords laughed when they saw it. A single ship? They mocked. Is this the best they have to offer? The Exalvoth had conquered thousands of worlds, destroyed countless armadas, and now they were being challenged by one unknown vessel? It was an insult. They did not see it as a threat. They saw it as a joke. The Exalvoth High Commander ordered an immediate strike, eager to destroy the foolish ship and prove, once again, that resistance was meaningless. Their fleet opened fire. Beams of energy, torpedoes, plasma cannons all unleashed upon the black warship. The firepower was enough to shatter entire moons, to reduce entire planets to dust. And yet, when the explosions cleared, the warship was still there. Untouched. No shields had flared, no armor had cracked. It had simply ignored the attack. The laughter stopped. Confusion spread among the Exalvoth ranks. Their sensors showed nothing. No energy readings, no defenses, no signs of movement. It was as if the ship wasn't really there. The High Commander, now annoyed, ordered a full assault. Every weapon, every warship, every fighter in the fleet focused their fire on the mysterious vessel. Space itself burned as thousands of blasts converged on a single point. When the flames cleared, the warship remained. The battlefield fell into silence. Then, the warship moved. It did not charge. It did not evade. It simply drifted forward, slow and deliberate. The Exalvoth fleet, once fearless, hesitated. It was a hesitation that would cost them everything. Without warning, the warship fired. It was not a missile. It was not a laser. It was something different, something no one understood. The moment it struck the lead Exalvoth battleship, the vessel did not explode, it vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. No debris, no wreckage. Nothing remained. The other Exalvoth warships scanned the area, but there was nothing to detect. It was as if the ship had never existed. Then, the warship fired again. Another Exalvoth vessel disappeared. Then another. And another. Panic spread like wildfire. The Exalvoth, who had never known fear, were now running. The High Commander barked orders, but no one listened. The fleet was in chaos. Some tried to fight, others tried to flee, but it didn't matter. One by one, the unknown warship erased them from existence. The most powerful fleet in the galaxy, the force that had ruled the stars for centuries, was being wiped out without a single trace. The remaining ships turned and ran, fleeing toward their homeworld, desperate to escape the nightmare. But the warship followed. No matter how fast they ran, it was always there, just behind them, watching. The Exalvoth reached their homeworld, hoping to regroup, to plan, to survive. But the moment they arrived, they saw it. The warship was already there, waiting. It had never been chasing them. It had always been ahead of them. For the first time in history, the Exalvoth High Council surrendered. They sent a message to the unknown warship, begging for mercy, pleading for their lives. The warship did not respond. It simply sat in orbit, silent and still. Then, after a long moment, a single transmission was sent across the galaxy. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a warning. This war is over. And just like that, the the warship turned and left, disappearing into the darkness from which it had come. The Exalvoth never recovered. Their empire collapsed within weeks, their enemies rising to take revenge for centuries of suffering. But even as the galaxy celebrated, no one knew where the warship had come from. No one knew who had built it or why it had intervened. And most terrifying of all, no one knew if it would ever return. The Exalvoth Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries. No force could stand against them. Their fleets crushed entire worlds. Their soldiers slaughtered billions without mercy. They had fought every known species, learned every strategy, countered every weapon. They believed they were invincible. But their greatest mistake was assuming that humanity was like the others. When the first Terran colonies were attacked, the humans did not surrender. They did not beg. They simply disappeared. The Exalvo warlords mocked them, believing they had fled like cowards. But they were wrong. Humanity had not run. They had been preparing. The war raged for years, spreading across the stars. The Exalvoth sent fleets after fleets, but the humans were unpredictable. They never fought the way others did. They didn't rely on numbers or brute force. They struck from the shadows, their ships appearing and disappearing without warning. They used strategies no one had ever seen before. Still, the Exalvoth remained confident. They were stronger, faster, more experienced. They had destroyed civilizations far more powerful than these newcomers. Victory was inevitable. At least, that's what they thought until the weapon was unleashed. It happened on the battlefield of Luthor 9, a heavily contested world where thousands of Exalvoth warships had gathered to deliver the final blow to the human resistance. The battle began like all the others. Exalvoth forces surrounded the planet, their weapons primed to burn everything to ash. They were certain that this would be humanity's last stand. But then, without warning, something changed. A single human warship entered the battlefield. Unlike the sleek and advanced ships of the Exalvoth, this vessel looked old, almost primitive. The Exalvoth commanders laughed. They believed it was a desperate last attempt, a meaningless act of defiance before extinction. But as soon as their sensors locked onto the ship, something terrifying happened. The readings made no sense. There were no weapons detected, no shields, no energy signatures. As if the ship was a ghost, the Exalvoth, confused but unafraid, fired the first shots. Beams of plasma, powerful enough to melt through mountains, struck the ship directly. But nothing happened. The ship did not explode. It did not even take damage. It simply ignored the attack. Panic spread among the Exalvoth ranks. Their greatest weapons, the tools they'd used to conquer the stars, were useless. Then, before they could react, the human ship fired. It was not a laser, not a missile, not anything the Exalvoth had ever seen before. A pulse of invisible energy rippled across the battlefield. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the largest Exalvoth battleship, the Blood Tyrant, simply vanished. No explosion. No wreckage. One moment it was there, the next, it was gone. The Exalvoth fleet froze in shock. There was no logical explanation. Their computers searched for the ship, scanned the battlefield, but there was nothing left to detect. It was as if the Blood Tyrant had never existed. Then the human ship fired again. Another Exalvoth vessel disappeared. Then another. And another. Fear turned into chaos. The Exalvoth commanders, once arrogant and fearless, screamed orders. They fired every weapon they had, but nothing worked. The human ship did not evade, did not counterattack, it simply erased them, one by one. It was not war. It was annihilation. The Exalvoth had fought millions of battles, but they had never encountered a weapon that should not exist. Their empire had been built on the belief that they were the strongest force in the galaxy. But now they realized something far worse. They were no longer the hunters. They were the prey. Desperate to escape, the Exalvoth fleet tried to retreat, but it was too late. Their engines failed, their navigation systems shut down. The weapon did not just destroy them, it controlled them. The human warship drifted forward, slow and deliberate. Then, for the first time, it broadcast a message. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a simple warning: leave, never return, or be erased. The Exalvoth, broken and terrified, did not hesitate. They abandoned the battlefield, leaving behind the burning remains of their once mighty fleet. The war, which had seemed endless, was over in an instant. But even after their retreat, the fear did not fade. The Exalvoth, once rulers of the stars, now lived in terror. They had believed themselves unstoppable, but now they understood the truth. They had never been the strongest. Humanity had simply been waiting, watching, preparing. And worst of all, no one knew what the weapon was, where it had come from, or if the humans would use it again. The galaxy had changed forever. The Exalvoth had learned their lesson. But the real question was, had the rest of the universe learned it too? For centuries, the Exalvoth Empire had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. They had crushed thousands of civilizations, burned entire planets, and erased species from existence without a second thought. No one had dared to stand against them, not because they were invincible, but because resistance had always meant destruction. Every rebellion had been silenced, every uprising drowned in fire. The galaxy had learned to live in fear, accepting the Exalvoth as their eternal masters. But then the humans arrived. And everything changed. At first, no one took them seriously. The Exalvoth saw them as just another weak species, another insignificant race that would either submit or perish. The first battles were one-sided slaughters. Human colonies were destroyed, their fleets shattered. The Exalvoth thought it would be over in weeks. But it wasn't. Humanity refused to die. They fought back with a determination no one had ever seen before. They didn't fight like other species. They didn't retreat when they lost battles. Instead, they adapted. Every defeat made them stronger. Every loss taught them something new. And then, one day, without warning, the tide of war shifted. The turning point came at the Battle of Valtor 7. The Exalvoth had gathered their largest fleet yet thousands of warships, each capable of reducing a planet to dust. The battle was supposed to be another victory, another reminder that resistance was hopeless. But when the Exalvoth fleet arrived, they did not find a broken enemy. They found something else. A single human warship drifted in the darkness, alone and silent. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It had no visible weapons, no energy readings, no signs of life. It was just there, watching, waiting. The Exalvoth hesitated. For the first time in history, they felt fear. Then the warship moved. Not fast, not aggressively. It simply glided forward, closing the distance between itself and the Exalvoth armada. The High Commander, refusing to be intimidated, ordered an immediate attack. Every ship opened fire. Thousands of plasma cannons, torpedoes, and energy beams rained down on the lone vessel. But as the smoke cleared, the warship remained untouched. No shields had activated. No armor had cracked. It was as if the Exalvoth had fired at nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, before anyone could react, the human ship fired back. There was no explosion, no blinding flash of energy. Just a pulse, a ripple through space. And then, the largest Exalvoth battleship simply disappeared. No debris, no wreckage. Gone. The galaxy watched in horror as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. The Exalvoth fleet, once feared across the stars, was being erased. Ship after ship vanished without a trace. The Exalvoth commanders screamed orders, desperate for an explanation, but none came. Their weapons did nothing. Their defenses were useless. The fleet that had once ruled the stars was being wiped from existence. Panic spread through the Exalvoth ranks. For the first time in history, they ran. They turned their warships away from the battlefield and fled, abandoning the war, their pride shattered. But it did not matter. The human warship followed. No matter how fast they ran, no matter how far they jumped, It was always there, waiting in the darkness. The Exalvoth had always believed that fear was a weapon they alone could wield. Now they understood what it felt like to be hunted. The rest of the galaxy could do nothing but watch. The once invincible empire was collapsing, its warlords begging for mercy, its leaders surrendering without a fight. The species that had once been the masters of destruction were now the victims of something far worse. And the scariest part? No one knew what the humans had done. No one understood their weapon. No one knew if they would stop. The war was over. The Exalvoth were finished. But the question that haunted every world, every ruler, every species, was simple. What happens next? The humans had won. But had the galaxy lost? The war had lasted longer than anyone had expected. The Exalvoth Empire, the greatest military force in the known galaxy, had attacked humanity with the same arrogance they had used to crush 1,000 other species. To them, Earth was just another world to burn, another civilization to erase. The humans, they believed, would kneel or die like all the others. But that was their first mistake. Humanity did neither. They fought back not just with weapons, but with something the Exalvoth could never understand. They fought with purpose. Every loss made them stronger. Every defeat taught them something new. They did not break. They did not surrender. They endured T first. The Exalvoth laughed at their defiance. Then they grew frustrated. And finally, they became afraid. The war, which should have been a swift and brutal conquest, turned into a nightmare. Human ships, once fragile and weak, became deadly. Their strategies became unpredictable, their weapons more advanced, their soldiers unstoppable. The Exalvoth had never seen an enemy like this, an enemy that evolved faster than they could destroy. Battles that should have been victories became desperate struggles. The tide of war began to turn. Then, one day, without warning, the Exalvoth received a message. A single transmission. It came from an unknown location, bypassing every security system, appearing on every Exalvoth screen, every warship, every command center. The message contained no threats, no demands. Just two simple words: never again. No one understood at first. The Exalvoth High Command dismissed it as human arrogance, another foolish attempt to intimidate them. But then, the disappearances began. Entire Exalvoth fleets vanished without a trace. Not destroyed, not defeated, just gone. Their distress signals would flare up for a brief moment before cutting off forever. No wreckage was ever found. No survivors. It was as if those ships had never existed. Panic spread through the Empire. The Exalvoth, once feared across the galaxy, were being hunted. Desperate, the Exalvoth launched an investigation. They searched the void for answers, trying to understand what was happening. Their greatest scientists worked day and night to uncover the truth. But they found nothing. No human fleet. No enemy movement. Nothing. Just the silence of space. And then the message came again. This time, it was different. The Exalvoth Emperor himself received it. A hologram, flickering with static, showing a human figure standing in the shadows. The voice was calm, cold, absolute. You believed you could burn our worlds. You believed you could erase us. You were wrong. This war ends now. You will never do this again. Then, the capital of the Exalvoth Empire, Korvath Prime, fell silent. Every communication link severed. Every warship in orbit, every defense platform, every soldier stationed on the planet vanished. The heart of the Empire, the core of its power, was now a dead world. No explosions. No invasion. Just emptiness. The Exalvoth High Council, once proud and untouchable, crumbled in terror. Their empire, which had lasted for millennia, was falling apart. The galaxy watched in horror. The invincible rulers of the stars, the species that had brought war to countless worlds, were now on their knees. Their fleets abandoned their posts. Their soldiers surrendered without a fight. No one knew what humanity had done, what kind of weapon they had created. But one thing was certain: the war was over. And then, for the last time, the message was sent to every corner of the galaxy. Never again. The meaning was clear. This was not just about the Exalvoth. It was a warning. A final declaration to all who watched, to all who had ever thought of conquest, of domination, of war. The era of galactic empires was over. The age of fear was finished. Humanity had won, not with brute force, but with something far more terrifying. They had ended the war on their terms, and they had made sure that it would never happen again. The Exalvoth Empire was gone. The galaxy would never be the same. And in the endless void of space, humanity watched.